Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is page 2 of my inspiration book. It's just a mixed media book, and if you've seen me in my last video, we did this one here. And this was one I did a year ago, which I love the colors, so I thought I'd use that itself as inspiration for my new inspiration page. I've got 3 colors here: Payne's Gray, Quinacridone Magenta, and Green Gold, and that's what I'm going to use. And later on I'll add white. I like to use the Payne's Gray instead of black because it's not so harsh. So what I'm going to do is start off with some pencil crayon mark making, and I have taped over the coiled center of the book so that when I remove the tape later on there won't be any paint on the coils, and it'll keep it clean. The previous page I taped all the way around and framed the image. This time I want the whole page being painted. I just want to protect the coils. So anyway, I've got some background mark making. It may or may not show up. And I've got some paper towel here with holes in it, and I want to use that as a pattern to lift paint later on. So we'll see if that works. I'm going to start off with my green gold. It's a fluid acrylic. It's a little bit wetter than regular pasted paint, and it's not as fluid as the high flow acrylic, somewhere in between. So you can see how it goes on quite runny. And because I haven't coated the paper, we're going to see what happens, because I have a feeling it's not going to lift like I want it to create a pattern from the paper towel. Because I did not protect the paper, it wasn't a smooth coating on there. So everything I'm putting on right now is already getting absorbed into that paper, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to put this paper towel down and press hard, press quite firmly. What I want to do is lift some of the paint, and wherever those holes were, it should keep the paint there and lift off elsewhere. But it only worked a little bit. I'm still happy with that. It still shows you can do that as a technique, and that's what this book is for, is to try out new things. So I'm going to spray some of this back because I didn't want such a strong swatch of color. I wanted to lift more of it and make more of a subtle green gold pattern. So let's see what happens. Let's try something else. Again, this book is for learning and exploring, trying techniques. And if I really make a mess and don't like it, I could tear this page out, but I do intend on keeping most of them, and quite often I end up with having such happy surprises that I like the results. So be bold, learn to explore. So when I took away some of it with the water, it still revealed a little bit of that pattern from the paper towel. Now let's do the same technique, but let's give this a good dry. I want to have a page completely dry, and then what I'm going to do is coat the entire paper with fluid medium, which is clear, and that way I'm protecting the background paper. And we can try that very same technique this time with Quinacridone Magenta, but I'll show you the difference with doing it with a coated paper, and it should make a difference. I knew that going in, but I like to show you that there are different options, and you would find out yourself the hard way, just like I just did. And that's what this is for, exploring and trying new things. So what my goal is to remove some of the magenta, and that would reveal some of the green below. So let's just see what happens with the mix of 2 colors and the mix of patterns. So I'm just, again, giving a really good coating over the entire paper. And then, of course, I'll let that dry before I add the magenta paint. I have a lot of fun with these inspiration books because I have zero expectations, and it's just to learn and explore and try things out. And if I get happy results, all the better. Either way, it's still a book full of inspiration and ideas and lessons learned. So that's dry now. Let's try the same technique with the magenta. It's a slightly less fluid. It's but it's full of very strong pigments. So we're going to put this down. Again, I've coated the paper below, so this should sit on the surface of that medium that I painted on, and hopefully it will lift a little bit better. It's a fun technique. I do this all the time. If you look back at some of my other videos, you'll see that I do this often. This goes on very bold and strong. As my thumbnail showed and as my intro showed, we're going to create very, very busy background and then find a calm image later on. And you don't get my technique without doing all these layers. So I'm going to press very firmly now and hope that this paint will lift off into the pattern of those dots from the paper towel. I'm pressing nice and firm, and there you go. That's what I wanted. I love it. I don't exactly love the middle area where the overlap of the green and magenta is, but I can take care of that. But I'm very happy with what happened with the pink. I let that dry completely, and now what I'm going to do is do some heavy paste white, and I'm going to smudge that around that middle area that I didn't love. Twofold, I didn't love it, but what I am doing is purposely putting a thick paste of white because I'm going to scrape back with a toothpick and scrape and make some shapes in there, which is what I did on the very first page that I showed you in the book that I did last year. There was some scraping there, and it revealed through the white the colors that were below. So that's a technique. So it's twofold. I'm doing this technique and I'm covering up the area that I didn't love. It was too muddy. So now I'm going to get a toothpick out. I love this technique. This is better than if you were to paint these swirly images with a paintbrush, because what happens is as I groove into it with the toothpick, it's revealing the color below as the colors change from green to pink. I'm doing all sorts of different patterns because this page is all about exploring with patterns and textures and layers of depth later on. So I'm just having fun scraping away while the paint is still wet, the white paint. Then I thought I'm just going to press really hard and do a real zigzaggy kind of pattern just to shake things up a bit. I'm really, really happy with actually how this looks exactly as it is. And I could stop right there and say that's a good page on lessons on what to do. But I want to show you how you can make a very busy, crazy background and then later on find a calm image over at the end. So this is just an underpainting at this point. In fact, it's the first stage of the underpainting. I like this, as I said. I like it a lot. I like the movement and flow of it and the energy. But I want to add that Payne's gray and get really, really busy still. But before I do that, I want to even do another coating of the clear fluid medium. And it just coats all this and keeps it as it is as my background, because if I don't like what I do on top with the dark navy blue of the Payne's gray, then I've got this coating here, and if I don't like what I do next, I can spray it off and wipe it all away and still reveal exactly what I have here. So nothing will be lost. There'll be no problem if I don't like what I get. Again, I'm going to be very, very bold. You're going to be shocked. But you can't get really happy results if you don't get bold and do some shocking things once in a while. And again, my abstract technique is all about layers. So I'm going to get this Payne's gray, but it's really, really heavy, and I don't want it that heavy. So I'm going to put it in my palette. That area below, it was already dry, so I'm just putting it on top of the same area. I'm going to mix that up a bit, but I want to spray water in there and make it more fluid because that's too pasty. I'm just mixing that up. I'm going to get some cardstock and test that out. It still looks dark, but you can tell that it is more transparent now, and that's what I wanted, and a little bit more fluid. But it's still dark. I want to add white to it, a fluid white, to take it down a notch. Make it more like faded denim jeans. That's a bit better. What I'm doing is called negative painting, where you go in all the white areas in the background and you paint through there, through all of that. And it makes what you had below pop forward. Now I'm not going to leave it like this. I'm going to end up spraying with water, but I have to do this first so it looks really bold. Actually, it looks quite fun. I'm going to go all the way around the borders of the painted areas. I don't mind that the left side is a little different than the right. I like asymmetry. So I'm going over most of the white areas of the page that weren't painted over, and I like this haphazard shape. Now I'm going to spray it with water and you'll see what happens. Because there's such a good coating, 2 coatings now of fluid medium on the page, it makes this paint dance all around and sit on the surface. And now I'm just using a paper towel to dab away excess. This is very, very loud, very bold, and I work it in bits. It's more bold than I intend, so I just keep spraying and removing some of it with the paper towel, because I don't want to lose those fun magenta patterns with the dots. This is very wet, again, because that medium is sitting on the top of the paper, so it's almost like painting over glass. And watch how fun it is to tilt the page and watch that paint flow. And you can't get that flow unless you spray a lot of water and move it around. And notice the page isn't warping like my previous page did in the previous video, because I did put this coating on, so it protects the paper and it therefore stops it from warping and bubbling. It almost makes it like a canvas now instead of just a mixed media paper. I'll do that a lot in this book. And that way, if I ever in the future look through this book and decide I like something so much, oh, by the way, I'm circling the areas of the patterns that I like and that I want to keep. And now I'm dabbing away excess on the edges. And I like that top left and bottom right that's got more pattern and texture from a completely different method. So I'm just dabbing away more and more. Notice as I remove and lift the paint, the center area where all the toothpick scribbles are, it's white on the surface, but all the scribble marks, all that fluid navy paint that I put in there has settled into those grooves. Look at that. It's really fun. And into the dots that I poked with the toothpick. And there with the squiggles, it's gone from pink to navy, and I love that. And you can't get that effect by painting that with a fine brush and doing squiggle lines. You have to do this by revealing. And I love this. So this is one big, very busy page. We're going to have really, so stick around, because this is going to alter dramatically when you see where we get to the final result. I'm going to just spray a little more along the bottom and lift some of that away. I love doing it with a spray sometimes instead of just paper towel, because it allows the paint to flow a little more differently than if I was to dab it away. This is fun. This is very interesting. Again, I could stop here, but I don't like to stop here because I want to show you how, as I promised in the thumbnail, you have to create busy before you can get the calm. So I'm just pointing out some of the fun areas that I like. I've got patterns from the paper towel. I've got patterns and grooves from the toothpick. I like that. Now, quite often I apply one of my white tissue prints that I did on a gel plate, and I just put a notice there that if you click below in the description, I will leave a link to these videos so that you can learn how to do white tissue prints. And I'm just thinking, if I glue this down with a clear medium, the tissue paper dissolves, but the white paint on the tissue stays there. So it's a fun technique that I like to do, but I'm trying to decide if I want to or not, because I don't want to lose the fun patterns below. So I'm thinking if any of this works where there's enough of a gap to reveal below those fun pokey areas that I did, I would use this. But I've decided I'm not going to. I'll do that another time. You'll see in my videos I do this technique often. But I just thought it's taking this page to a direction that I don't want to take it at this time. But I want to show you that it's okay to take them out and look and give it a try and imagine. But again, I've decided, nope, I'm not going to do it. I like what I've got in the middle of my page, so I'm going to stick with that. What I could do is cover the area instead with white, which I'm going to do now. I'm going to do this instead. See, I wanted to bring some calm to the page, but I'm not doing it through the tissue print. I'm going to paint all around the exteriors, top, bottom, left, and right of the page with white paint in a very smudgy, cloudy way. And we'll see what happens. I'm putting quite a bit on the brush, but then I'm lightly dabbing it on the page, and then I use the brush to fan it around lightly. I've got a wet wipe here that I'm using to smudge away where I overdid it, because I really love that navy area there. That's quite cloudy and interesting, and I want to maintain that on my page. So as I dab white around the exteriors, I don't want to overdo it on some of the spots that I love so much. And then I will keep that wet wipe to smudge before this dries if I've overdone it, like right here, and a little bit there. And I like doing it that way because I want to keep it smudgy. I like to do contrasts on my work where I have sharp edges and busy areas, and then I have fuzzy, cloudy areas, which is a quiet place for your eye to rest as your eye is moving around the page. So that's why I do that in a smudgy way. And I'm going to try, as well as I lay it down, to move my paintbrush in different directions so they don't have vertical or horizontal brush strokes once it's dry. I like to mix it up a bit and do it very lightly. So even though there's a lot of paint on the brush, I'm just dabbing it lightly, and then when I fan it around like that, even though I've sped this up a bit, but it looks like I'm pressing hard, I'm not. I'm pressing very lightly to keep that cloudy effect. And I do not want to alter that zigzag there, so I'm dabbing some of that back because I do love that toothpick zigzag effect that I did there. And sometimes in fact, quite often I use my finger as a brush. So I find that it's very top heavy with the navy blue up top left there, and it's very light on the bottom right. So eventually I'm going to do something about that. But for now, I want to keep adding more white. Eventually what I want to do, and I will do it again later, is once this dries, I'm going to add even more white pasty paint along the very outer edges so that it completely disappears to bright white at all the edges of the page. And I'm pressing very lightly with my finger because I want to keep it smudgy and light. I want to keep the effect that I've been starting. So again, I want that navy to move down the page a little bit to the right, even though I've got very strong, harsh navy squirrely lines from the toothpick, it's not making as much impact down on the middle right as it is in the top left. So I will do something about that. Right now I'm taking the toothpick while that white is still wet, and I'm going up and down and just doing pokes so that I get dots. And wherever it ends up becoming a slash line, I just smudge that back to a smooth white, and then I poke away again. What I want is the effect of dots. So now I've got lots of different patterns around the page from the toothpick. I've got dots, I've got squiggles, I've got slash lines, I've got zigzag. I've got a lot of different effects. I don't want to cover that navy completely. I'm going to let that dry before I do anything more. And now it's dry. I'm not sure about the magenta if I want it that strong, because it's almost like all three colors are equal weight of color, and I would like the magenta to disappear a little bit more into the background. I would like the Payne's gray, which is navy, and that lovely green gold to be more on the foreground and push that magenta more into the background without losing too much of the print and pattern that I've got there from the paper towel. So I'm going to add some more white and smudge over top. And I'm changing the direction with my fingers so that I don't get an up and down or left and right. I want it to be a nice overall smudge. And I'll do a little bit in the bottom as well. And a little bit more over there. As promised, I'm putting more. I'm going to cover more of that magenta. What I'm going to do now, see now, again, I want to balance the navy across the page, but before this white dries, I want to spray with water, and I'm going to leave it to look how milky that looks. I want to leave it like that until it dries. And when it does dry, it won't be quite as milky. It'll be a little bit brighter magenta. But I do love doing that technique as well, because it just ends up being very, very filmy. So all the water evaporated, and it's not quite as filmy as it was, but I did reduce some of the effect of that magenta. And if I would have done that on paper without that fluid medium painted underneath, all of that would have been too much, and it would have warped the paper. Now I want to enhance even more. I want the very, very, very edges of all the page to be very strong white. So I'm just with a small brush moving around just the very edges of the paper to make it even whiter, so that all this center cloudy area pops more. I love playing with layers of depth, and this is one of the ways of doing it. There is more balance of the navy right below my hand there with all the squiggly lines there, but it's still a little too top heavy on the top left, so I will do something about the navy after this. So again, I'm just getting a really strong white frame, almost a cloudy frame, going right over top the edge of the tape there. When I pull the tape back, that'll be a nice strong white line. So there, I want to move that effect down into there. Even though this is just a book of inspiration, I'm treating this because right now I feel like a story has emerged, and so I'm just playing with that and going with that, because someday, so once I get to that point and I'm happy with it becoming a story, it's evolving into something that wants to come forward, I may as well treat it as if it is a painting on canvas. And how would I do that to balance the page? So what I'm doing is getting that color, which I added a lot of water so it's like a glaze. And this is a technique I do often. You've got a glaze when you've got a transparent color, and then I'm even making it more transparent by adding more water. And look at how that spreads into the grooves. So what I've got is that navy now moving from the top left down to the bottom right of the page in a different pattern. So if this was a painting that I wanted to put on a wall, I've got much more balance. You can see how the magenta has balanced, the green has balanced, the blue is balanced. But the blue and the green are going to be the forwardmost colors. So the blue really came out forward now. I want to add more of the green gold. And I'm sorry for my hair being in the way. And down there as well. And what I loved, so I would call the navy my main color. This green gold is my accent. And the magenta is my secondary color. And then the white is my, my neutral. There was a little bit of green in the circular areas there, so I'm just dabbing a little in there. It was quite wet with water, so it spread, but I don't mind that. So I'm just playing with a different shape with the green. So now I've got that green gold in 3 different areas, but they are completely different shapes and patterns, and I like that. Now let's remove that tape. Look how clean and white that edge is. I love this. I'm happy with it. So I had a very, very busy, chaotic start, and now I've got a really smooth, calm, gentle finish, and I like the story that's happening here. I encourage you to give this a try yourself, and you're going to get different results, and that's wonderful because this is your time to play, and it's all about just getting lost in the mindfulness of this. I've had a lot of pain that I've been going through this year, and when I do things like this, it just gets my mind into the zone, the Zen zone, I call it, and into my mojo, and I forget about everything that's going on in the world and anything that I'm going through that's not fun, and I love it. So I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.